to the Air It Out. All right. Yo. Welcome to the Air It Out show with my homie, the big homie. You know what I'm saying? Former Notre Dame quarterback. You know what I'm saying? Former Florida quarterback. My guy, Malik Zaire in the building. Yo, this is a change of pace. You know what I'm saying? We're going to talk about fantasy football and some NFL show. We got a new show for y'all. So, Malik, introduce yourself, bro. Say what's good, man. Say what up to the people, dogs.
I gotta come on, man. We do our thing out here. It's something that was meant to be for a long time, but like you said, there's a bunch of football coverage that they need to hear from the streets, the real culture. That's us. That's me and Rios. We've been wanting to do this for a while, and it's something that's much needed for the football fantasy and just if you want to get your knowledge up. You talking to the wisest people that and I know, myself and Rios. So tune in right here at this.
All right, so guys, as we know, we've been under some trying times for real, So this whole COVID pandemic, honestly, real talk, like football's been such like a back burner in my mind that me personally, I wasn't ready for the fantasy football season at all. It just came up out of nowhere, and I'm like, oh my god, I got to do my research and stuff. So, we're gonna give you guys some quick knowledge. I know the season starts on Thursday. So we're gonna have some quick tips for you just so when you get your drafts in, your picks in, we gonna share some knowledge. You know what I'm saying? So first things first, man, Malik. Yo, I just want to ask you, bro, how you been holding up through this whole COVID situation, man? What's it like? First of all, you're in LA and I'm in New York, so I wonder how LA is doing. So
What's so crazy about LA, man, is that it's so big to where when they talk about all this stuff on the news, you would think it's happening right outside your doorstep. But it's so much going on in LA. There's so many people that you just got to stay in the right path. And then with all this football stuff going on, happening so randomly, it's hard to see like staying in tune like the regular schedule. You used to having updates from training camp every day and just the day-to-day news when it's been kind of stagnant throughout the offseason. You get some contract talks. You're getting some major people getting cut because just the free agency and guys coming in and out and actually getting good looks on the team has been crazy. Training camp's been cut short. So the football world has changed. Even for high school, you got some states playing in January like California, and then some states playing in next week like in Ohio and in Florida. So the whole football landscape is changing. It's much needed. We got to talk about this.
Right. So now I want to talk about let's get into the fantasy stuff real quick. You know what I'm saying? So obviously some of you guys already drafted. Some of you guys maybe haven't drafted yet. So I want to talk about, I got some questions I want to ask you. Give me all right, what's the best running back handcuff that you think is available right now that every fantasy owner should try to target depending on where you are in the draft, but like which is the most valuable handcuff you think for running backs that is very important for you to have?
It's very important to get somebody is going to be in a primarily run position. I'm honestly going all the way in Chicago. I'm going into Chicago with the Chicago Bears, that running back staple that they have with Tariq and the guys that they signed this last season because they just lost. What was it? David Miller. They just lost it, right? They just lost the.
Yeah, they lost Mike Davis, so they lost their third back. But honestly, I'm excited to see what David Montgomery, has in store because he was a little shaky to start with in the beginning of the season. Then he started to get his form towards the end of the season, and we already know what Tariq Cohen can do just off the him being able to catch out the backfield and him being a third down running specialist. So like which is valuable in PPR leagues. So.
And on top of that, he does special teams. And at the fact he's emptying out of the backfield, you're getting guys that's going to be taking at least 60 snaps between the two. And they may be on the field at the same time. And knowing with a quarterback like Mitch Trubisky, I mean, I can tell that they're going to be turning around, handing the ball for a little bit.
I mean, yeah, Mitch is it's his contract year, so he has a lot to prove, But I want to talk about my favorite running back handcuff. I want to talk about the Saints running back handcuff, you know what I'm saying, with Kamara and Latavius Murray. I mean, Kamara, we already know what he can do. You know what I'm saying? Kamara is probably one of the best. He's one of the best premier running backs, that we have in the game right now. But I want to talk about the value of Latavius Murray because although Kamara had somewhat of like a, he tailed down a little bit last season compared to, his previous two, but Latavius Murray, when Kamara was hurt, he put up double-digit points, and, he was able to get to the end zone, and we already know how high-powered that Saints offense is. So I'm interested to see how both of these guys are going to be able to coexist by them sharing essentially the workload. Because we know Kamara's a specialty back. He's really not a guy that runs in between the tackles per se. I mean, he could do it, but that's not really his specialty. That's Latavius Murray's specialty, whereas Kamara can do the other things. He can catch at the backfield. You can line him up as a receiver, and you can put him against a cornerback or a linebacker, and that's easy money. And especially with a quarterback like Drew Brees, so... And
Drew Brees is also fighting racism at the same time, trying to get 5,000 yards.
Yo!
So I feel like he's got a lot to go.
What's crazy, bro? Because I was watching. You know how NFL has the media day and they put like the pictures of the players out, right, of their uniforms, right? Yo, I saw Drew Brees in them Black History Month Kyrie Irvings. I'm like, brother. The acts are very performative, my G. Especially after
they're performing their ass off, that's for sure.
Right, especially after what he said about the about the flag and everything like that, which was bad in itself. But all the social shit aside, I'm excited to see what the Saints are going to do offensively. You know what I'm saying? Because every year they put out a fire high octane offense, even when Drew Brees is out. You know what I'm saying? Like they had Teddy Bridge, so God forbid, Teddy, Brees gets hurt. You got my guy LASIK eye surgery, my boy.
He's here with it. He ain't missing no more.
First of all, 30 for 30, my boy 30-30 club, Jameis Winston. He's the backup now for the Saints. So I'm interested to see
30 touchdowns with no eyesight.
Bro, but the thing is, which is crazy because it's like, dog, like, imagine if he could see, and he has a guy, he has a guy now with Sean Payton, who's kind of a quarterback whisperer and a quarterback guru. I mean, listen, you're already seeing what he's done with Teddy Bridge. Teddy Bridge got that contract in Carolina, you know what I'm saying, and Taysom Hill, he got some money, so it's interesting to see how the Saints going to be this year, but. I want to talk about some other players real quick. I want to talk about my guy, because I'm from New York, you feel me? So I want to talk about the two New York quarterbacks, you know what I'm saying? I want to talk about Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold. So I think, this is a hot take real quick, dog. This is a real quick hot take. Daniel Jones, and we can put some money on this too, dog. We could do a bet on the side. I think Daniel Jones will finish as a top 12 fantasy quarterback this season, because I'm looking at his output that he had last season, minus the times Eli had to start and stuff like that, all that. But he was in the top 20 still while only playing 13 games last season. So I'm interested to see what he has with a full workload. He has Slayton now, which he was very surprised towards the end of the season. If you had Slayton towards the end of the year, you probably, did well in the playoffs, or you probably got to the championship, So that correlation's been there. But I'm interested to see Daniel Jones have a full offseason with these receivers such as Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, Tate, and like I said, Slayton. So I'm interested to see how he's gonna do. And plus, the most underrated part about his game is his running, you know what I'm saying? So which is crazy because people think, you know what I'm saying, he's a quirky white guy and all that, you know what I'm saying? But he had 300 rushing yards last season. You feel me? Which is very, very, you know what I'm saying, respectable for a quarterback. So I'm interested to see what they're gonna do in the run game with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, because now you can run some read option stuff with those two guys, which is kind of dangerous, and like that's the way the trend the NFL is going with a lot of, read options and stuff. But I want to talk about Sam Darnold. God bless that man. I feel bad for Sam Darnold, dog. You feel me? Shout out my guy, Jay Bobby. He's a Jets fan. But I don't know, bro. Like, he lost his receivers. You know what I'm saying? He really has no one to throw to. I mean, Le'Veon Bell is still kind of suspect. And then they signed Frank Gore. So it's like,
what you gonna do? They got my guy LaMichael Pirine up there, and I do want to address the Giants before we skip over and get
Sam. Nah, what's up? Nah, talk to me. What's up?
We definitely got to talk about Daniel Jones and the fact that yeah, he may finish top 12, but when you playing from behind, you're going to have a lot of stats you're going to make up for it as a bunch of nothingless stats. You're going to have 300-yard games when you're losing by 49 points in the first half. And then on
Hey,
top of that,
don't wish that on my Giants, dog.
we're not even
Don't
factoring
wish it on my
in
Giants,
the
dog.
sophomore season. Now you got teams that know who his starting quarterback is for sure. And even though he didn't get on that Madden cover, he can still take on that sophomore curse and get in a slump where, okay, you got guys that you're expected to win now. I mean, you got the pieces, and like you said, they got Tate, they got Evan Ingram, they got Saquon that's going to be better in the run game with a better offensive line. They're probably going to try to do the Kirk Cousins style with more play action and try to force the ball down the field with some of those guys they got. But it's going to be interesting to see what teams that study a whole year on Daniel Jones will come back and allow. I don't think it's going to be hard for him to put up 300 yards a game because they may be in a lot more closer games than they were last year. That's for sure.
Right. I mean, the Giants did get better overall as a team, but we'll talk about that. That's another time. But I want to get into these fantasy football receivers real quick. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, because obviously, you know, Michael Thomas, you feel me? He had an all-time great season, probably one of the best receiving seasons in NFL history. I want to ask you on first of all, what are your takes on Michael Thomas, number one? And two, where do you see him? You know, what's his outlook for next season? You know what I'm saying? Fantasy-wise and even just in general.
I think Michael Thomas's arrogance is going to hold him back. I think those numbers really got to his head. He's really thinking he's a top 5 receiver in the game. Drew Brees is force feeding him the ball. But like you said with the Saints, it's talent all over the field. Alvin Kamara and Taysom Hill are going to be taking a lot of snaps. And then you got on top of that, you're going to have Drew Brees trying to reach that another 5,000-yard mark. He's got more competition in his division with Tom Brady being twice a year, as well as Teddy Bridgewater twice a year that he's going to be going against. And it's going to fuel him and Sean Payton's drive to score a lot more points. So Mike Thomas is going to be a factor, but I think teams are going to key in a lot more on him just because he had an unbelievable season. No team in the NFL is going to respect that twice without saying something about it.
Right, but I want to play devil's advocate real quick. You know what I'm saying? I think he's going to be okay this year. He may not put up the same number of receptions that he had last year, but I think in terms of yard output, it's possible. I mean, he has Emmanuel Sanders now, which is a big part of him being able to see single coverage. So, like, maybe and Drew Brees is a good enough quarterback to where he can take advantage of that. So, I'm interested to see how him and Emmanuel Sanders coexist because Emmanuel Sanders, he needs his targets. You know what I'm saying? He's probably, to me, out of the receivers in the 2010s and, you know, of this decade, he's probably the most underappreciated wide receiver in this decade, in my opinion, in terms of yards, touchdowns, and, you know, yards per catch. Yeah, I think he's one of the more underappreciated receivers that we've had in a while. And the fact that Drew Brees has that on his team now is interesting. So I want to see
more underrated than AJ Green this season with Joe Burrow.
I mean, that's interesting. That's an interesting point. That's interesting because, I mean, if you want to compare the two, I mean, both those guys came off of, you know, injury-riddled seasons, but I'm interested to see how AJ Green. Let's talk about AJ Green right now, actually, and the Bengals offense. So, like, I'm interested to see how AJ Green adjusts to Joe Burrow, and I mean, listen, Joe Burrow it's a rookie quarterback, so I mean, I feel like a lot like Boyd is probably going to benefit more off Joe Burrow because rookie quarterbacks. We know this already. They love the tight end and they love the slot receiver. So, and Boyd is probably one of the best slot receivers in the game that we have today. So, I'm interested to see how AJ Green is. You know what I'm saying? Personally, I want him to get traded. I wanted him to go to San Francisco, you know, with Jimmy Garoppolo because they don't have a true number one. And then you probably would have paired AJ Green, and then you would have had Debo and then plus Brandon Ayuk. You know what I'm saying? That would have been a pretty fire 3 tandem. But the Bengals still have a pretty talented skill position core. You still got Mixon, and you got Gio, and you know what I'm saying? You got Tyler Eifert, and you got all those guys. So I mean, it's interesting to see how they're gonna coexist. But
This
hey,
might
listen,
this might be the one for AJ Green, considering that now at least we know we got a quarterback capable of at least doing something. And Andy Dalton, even though he was there and they wasn't winning a lot of games, they had some synergy there. And with the mustard that
right,
Joe Burrow
right,
was
right.
bringing in and the hype, I think AJ Green will have a breakout season. Considering Tyler Boyd being such a threat and AJ Green coming back, I think he's gonna come back with at least more spark in his step to have a better fantasy points. That's for sure. He's the
Um,
Julio of the Falcons without Matt Ryan.
ooh, wow. I like that. I like that. I want to talk about let's talk about the Falcons. You know what I'm saying? I want to talk about the Falcons real quick. Now we all know what Julio Jones could do. You feel me? We already know what he can do. You know what I'm saying? Like, one of the best to ever do it. Period. Point blank, hands down. But I want to talk about Calvin Ridley. You know what I'm saying? Calvin Ridley finished hot to end the season. You know what I'm saying? He finished real hot to end the season. What's your outlook on him, fantasy wise, possibly, and overall? You know what I'm saying? Do you think he's gonna make that next step to being one of the is he gonna move up a tier in the receiving class? You know?
I definitely think this is his chance to come out with more of a concerted effort to get targeted more. Now that he's been ingrained in the offense, and they're going to be targeting Julio, and they got Todd Gurley and a nice running back stable. It's a pretty talented team overall for where Matt Ryan being as veteran as he is and likes getting the ball out of his hands. Calvin really is going to be touching the ball a lot. So his potential for fantasy points definitely are on an up and up. Because we know one thing, no matter what, Julio's not going to get them touchdowns. He's going to get a lot of yards. So Calvin, I believe, is going to finish in the red zone and score a lot of touchdowns for those boys because they need it this year. And it's going to be more of an open pathway considering Todd Gurley's playing at home finally. And, he's got the hometown credit behind them, as well as the Falcons in that division going to have to put up more points in general. You got Tom Brady and Gronkowski
Right.
and all those guys, then they're going to have to put up a point division right there. So Calvin really is going to make or break the Falcons this year because his health and his contribution is going to be that tipping point for them to even get out of their own division.
Right, because I mean the NFC South is, to me, I think it's the best division in football overall on paper, probably next to the AFC North, I'd say. But
yeah,
because listen, I can't count on Matt Ryan because consistently, year after year after year, even if they have a winning season or a losing season, just off a fantasy perspective, he's always finished within the top half. So that's something that you have to consider when you're drafting him because usually the trend is you can always get a quarterback late, and especially in fantasy drafts. You can always get a guy like Matthew Stafford or a guy like Matt Ryan, or even a guy like Aaron Rodgers this year. You know what I'm saying? Aaron Rodgers he's scaling back a lot in a lot of fantasy rankings this season. So, I mean, you can get a guy like that, a serviceable, good quality quarterback in these late rounds this year. So don't worry about, trying to reach for a quarterback unless you got Mahomes sitting in the 5th round or Lamar Jackson or Deshaun Watson, those guys, Russell Wilson, those guys sitting within the mid rounds, then maybe you can target someone. But other than that, like the quarterbacks this year it's a very, very, very deep talent pool, So that's my opinion.
So would you draft? Okay, let's play fantasy question. Would you draft a Bills receiver, Stephon Diggs, that just got to Buffalo? Do you trust Josh Allen to raise Stephon Diggs' fantasy points this year?
I mean, listen, I'm interested to see what Stephon Diggs does because we saw what Josh Allen did with John Brown. So John Brown was a top 50 wide receiver last year in fantasy. So he now has a guy, Stephon Diggs, who is extremely talented. We already know what he could do on the football field, but the question is, can Josh Allen take that next step into, him being a overall complete quarterback? Because we already know he's athletic. He has the big arm, but the accuracy is the key. And that's always been the Achilles heel and like the knock on him. So if he, shores up his accuracy, gets that, completion percentage into like possibly the high 60s, the sky's the limit for Stephon Diggs and the Buffalo Bills offense, real talk. You know what I'm saying? So I'm
They
interested to
taking
see.
down the Patriots finally. They taking down the Patriots in the division.
I don't know. I don't know. I can't listen. I'm never gonna count out Bill Belichick ever. You know, he's possibly the greatest football mind that we've ever seen. So I'm never gonna count out the Patriots. But I think it's gonna be it's gonna be a 2-team race. And honestly, the Dolphins are a team that you really can't sleep on this year. You know, they finished out
Until
strong.
Tua starts.
Listen, they finished out right. I mean, Fitzpatrick it's just announced today that he's going to be the starter, which is good, you know, because
Yeah, it's good. It is good.
No, because you know why? Listen, as from a fantasy perspective, I love when the Dolphins are down, and I drafted Devontae Parker too. So I love when the Dolphins are down, you know, by a touchdown or two in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And because I know personally that's Devontae Parker time, so we gonna eat, you know. So I'm ready. I'm ready for Ryan Fitzpatrick, for Ryan Fitzmagic. You feel me? But then again, I'm hyped to it. You know what I'm just saying? Because he starts off real hot. You know what I'm saying? Then he plateaus and then he falls off a fucking cliff. So I'm just waiting him. I'm just waiting. You know, I'm trying to get that. I'm trying to hit that high as best as I can. You know what I'm saying? So I'm interested to see. But also too, the Dolphins play extremely hard. The Dolphins play extremely hard. They're probably one of the best, you know, so they have an average defense and they got an average special team. So I could see them. They may not make the playoffs, but if they win 7 games, I wouldn't be shocked. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really wouldn't be shocked.
That means they beat somebody in that division twice. It may be the Jets.
Oh, we come on. We know who. Why I got, come on. Why we got to, you know what I'm saying? Like, why we got to elaborate on that? You know,
what is the issue with the Jets in fantasy? Like, why can't the Jets win? Where are they missing at?
All right, like Le'Veon Bell. I mean, I feel like he's taken a step back. You know what I'm saying? Like, because there's been reports around Jet Camp that he's running with the second team. So that's not looking too good for a guy that you paid $70 million for. You know what I'm saying? Which is crazy too, because like Le'Veon Bell's in rap videos now and stuff like that. It's like, dog, where you been? It's like, what are you doing?
That's why like, bro, like, team. He focused on the he's making 9 hits.
He's too busy in Sada Baby's videos and stuff like that. Man, he's in that whole lot of Chopper's video too. That's probably the most funniest cameo I've ever seen. You know what I'm saying? But you know, Le'Veon Bell's a Detroit guy. You know what I'm saying? So it evens out. So I respect it. But I want to talk about. Let's get into these rookie running backs real quick, man. So obviously we got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, LSU product. He's on that high-powered, high-potent Chiefs offense with Pat Mahomes and the crew, Tyreek Hill and the crew. So I want to ask you, what's your outlook on Clyde Edwards this season?
Clyde Edwards being in the position in Chiefs is like the perfect role of a Darren Sproles to an Eagles offense. He's the utility man that will hold it all together.
I like that.
He is the utility man that's going to hold the offense together when Pat Mahomes is throwing 50 passes a game. You know Edwards-Helaire is just going to give you just enough like a Tony Pollard, but more athletic in the run in between the tackles that's going to give him a chance to make him unstoppable this season for sure.
Right. I'm excited to see what he does this season, you know, because, you know, there was a lot of hype there wasn't too much hype on him, you know what I'm saying, like coming out of the draft, but it was just a matter of what team he was going to play for, you know, but the fact that he's on the Chiefs and he has Pat Mahomes and the thing is too with LSU, he was catching passes out the backfield. So that is very important for all my PPR money guys, you know what I'm saying? Catches are very important. So the fact that he's able to, you know what I'm saying, catch that thing out the backfield with Mahomes, and you have Hardman and Kelsey and you have Sammy Watkins, a plethora of guys that Mahomes can throw to. So I'm interested to see how he's going to do. Maybe rushing wise, I don't think he's going to break the 1,000-yard rushing mark this season. I don't think it's possible. But can he be a top 5 guy in all-purpose yards this season throughout the year? Absolutely.
He'll be up there with Christian McCaffrey. He'll be up there with Christian McCaffrey all purpose.
Right, but I'm interested to see how that works out. I want to talk about 2 guys. There's 2 more guys we got touching, especially on the rookie running backs. We got to talk about my guy Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin. He's on the Colts now, and we got my guy J.K. Dobbins from OSU, but he's on the Baltimore Ravens. Shout out to Big Trust Gang. So I want to ask, out of those two guys, which of the two you think is going to struggle a little? Who you think out of those two is going to struggle?
Man, with an offensive line that Indy has, it's going to be hard to see Jonathan Taylor have a lot of hard times, considering they have a pretty solid team and a veteran quarterback in Phillip Rivers who understands that the run game is going to be important, and it just depends on how much they're going to put the rookie in there. I think when you're running behind that experience now, Colts offensive line, you're going to be hitting that 5 yards in the hole before anything's rolling. Now with the Ravens too, J.K. Dobbins being in an offense with their offensive line and him coming from a rugged Ohio State downhill type of run style is going to fit into a lot of the read option that Lamar has. So some of his carries may be taken away because they're converging on the mesh point, and Lamar is going to do his thing because Lamar, I don't think anybody is going to outrank him in yards on his own team. So that might be a limiting factor to J.K. Dobbins' ability to get that many yards. But, you got a free-range Jonathan Taylor in a fresh system with Phillip Rivers turning around, handing that rock off to him in favorable fronts. Teams are probably going to respect the pass game against the Colts more so than the run, whereas with Baltimore, they run first. So just from the scheme of offenses, Jonathan Taylor has potential to really take off this season in the right settings, provided he get enough carries.
Okay. I mean, because listen, I think the Colts running backs, you know what I'm saying? You have Marlon Mack and you have Nyheim Hines. I think it's interesting to see where Jonathan Taylor goes. I'm interested to see him towards the middle of the season because, I mean, Mack, you have to give him his carries because of what he did last year in terms of all-purpose yards. He deserves that privilege, period. And then you have Nyheim Hines, who's a good third down running back. He can catch it out the backfield. And God forbid if we've seen when Marlon Mack's been hurt, what Nyheim Hines is able to do, even running in between the tackles. So I'm interested to see that Colts running back share because it could be towards the end of the season. It could be running back by committee on that team, depending on how well Phillip Rivers and those receivers play. But I want to talk about the Ravens real quick. I mean, I think J.K. Dobbins, I think he's kind of like the biggest risk out of the rookie running backs because like you said, you have Lamar Jackson and plus you have Mark Ingram too. And Mark Ingram had an awesome season last year with Baltimore. So he has to get his carries and he has to get his touches. But I'm interested to see the Ravens, what they do on the goal line because we already know Ingram is a great goal line back, and it depends on those shares that they have. You know what I'm saying? That percentage share. But because, I mean, if you look at ADP, Mark Ingram had a pretty decent ADP compared to, Dobbins coming in. We don't know about Dobbins ADP yet, but what the numbers show is that Mark Ingram is still a valuable running back, especially in the red zone. So that's something that you cannot, ignore. So I really want to see. I'm interested to see J.K. Dobbins, but do you really have? But like on an X's and O's perspective, I want to ask you this: like, how would you utilize? What do you think the Ravens' best way to utilize J.K. Dobbins?
Oh, I would see him as a favorable third or a third down back to get those tough 6 yards to a first down because he doesn't have the quite explosiveness of your Phillip Lindsay's or your lightning backs per se, where he's going to bust it open for 30 yards a carry. He's going to be the guy that you put in with Lamar as a backup to a Mark Ingram to get in there and get those tough yards inside and allow Lamar to get those outside yards. So it's going to be a nice counterbalance between the two. I think it's going to be more between the tackles than a Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara situation was. I see this more as these two running backs are going to stay in between the tackles and let Lamar take the outside chances when he gets a chance.
Okay. That's pretty favorable. I want to talk about now these sophomore running backs because the sophomore slump. You know what I'm saying? That's a real thing. We know that's a real thing. So I got two running backs I want to talk about. I mean, we focus on our running backs right now for a little bit, but I want to talk about Josh Jacobs and Miles Sanders. Now those guys are they're going to go with probably by round 3. Those guys are going to go. So I want to ask you, out of those two guys, which out of those two running backs you think is going to digress this season, take a step back this season?
I believe it's definitely going to be Miles Sanders from the Eagles because the Eagles offense still has yet to claim an identity on what they want to do. I believe last season they was in a position where they just was trying to win games, considering they was trying to make the playoffs as an 8-8 team. So anything they could do to produce a spark of offense, it was coming from Miles Sanders at the time because we know they had a lot of receiver troubles last year with catching the ball and being able to sustain an offense through the air, which hurt Carson a lot. But he was able to pull up through.
Yeah, they were signing dudes off the street.
They had Greg Ward, that was a quarterback who started over Kyle Allen out there starting receiver for the Eagles. So it's interesting to see how the Eagles are going to claim an offensive identity this season, but I don't think it's going to be centered around Miles Sanders because Josh Jacobs is in a perfect situation in Las Vegas Raiders where he was their premier back. He was the back that they was featuring, and it helped Derek Carr out a lot. So I see him getting a lot of those same carries this year too.
All right. Now I want to talk about the team that do we really like them? Let's be real here. Do we really like them? I want to talk about the Cleveland Browns real quick, man. Listen, we all know the situation that happened last year. They signed OBJ last season, and he didn't perform up to par. Well, which is crazy because it's wild. Although he didn't perform up to par, he still had 1,000 receiving yards. So that just shows the talent level and just the pure skill of OBJ. But they still had Jarvis Landry. You know what I'm saying? I believe they still have Njoku, right? Do they still have Njoku? I believe they still have Njoku. So I'm interested to see how the Browns offense, improves. But it's all about Baker Mayfield at the end of the day. I did not mention him. So what are your thoughts on Baker Mayfield?
The Browns kill me because they're the team that you get the most excited to watch because at the end they find an exciting way to lose the game. So that's why they give you the most thrillers throughout each season is because you want them to win so bad because at the end of the day they're going to find a way to lose. And this season, I think it's important for Baker to really take that feeling dangerous and applying it to the season. He has nothing that's going to hold him back from reaching what I believe they could come out of the division on top and potentially make the playoffs because they have all the pieces. You got Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb in the backfield alone. That alone right there is an offense. So for them to be able to have all the pieces and still find a way to not win games is the Cleveland Browns history. So this season, I think Baker's going to be feeling dangerous enough to open up the ball more and get the ball to OBJ and Jarvis, and that's going to help the run game.
Right, and they just signed Austin, and they signed Austin Hooper in the offseason too, which I think is going to be a big help for Baker Mayfield because we already know how what a safety valve is for a tight end. You know what I'm saying? Like quarterbacks, I feel like the tight ends now are more important because there's a lot of read option, run option stuff. So the tight end has to be more involved in the offense in terms of the blocking scheme and also in terms of the passing scheme. You know what I'm saying? Like lining the guys out wide. So you have two tight ends that you can line up as receivers. Then you have Jarvis and OBJ, and then you have possibly, I think, the best flex. I think Kareem Hunt is going to be the best player that you could play at the flex this season, just because the fact that he can catch out the backfield. They were utilizing him as a receiver last season on some schemes and some plays, and the fact that they want to utilize him more in the passing game it's very alarming for those Browns receivers, but also interesting to see if you have Kareem Hunt. You know what I'm saying? So that's my thing. Listen, will Nick Chubb get his rushing yards? Absolutely. We already know what Nick Chubb can do in between the tackles, but I want to see what Kareem Hunt does just from an all-purpose yards perspective. You know what I'm saying? Could he break that 1,000-yard all-purpose mark? It's possible. Maybe not. But, barring injury, but the Browns offense just has to step it up this season. Point blank period. End the discussion.
They have no more excuses because at the end of the day, we used to talk about how they had no help like LeBron, and now they got the most help. So now we have to turn that into making some wins happen for the Cleveland Browns.
All right. Now, obviously, we got to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and that offense that they got. They just signed Leonard Fournette. We already know the receivers they got Mike Evans, they got Chris Godwin. They just signed, Gronk. He's an all-timer, first ballot Hall of Famer. They got Tom Brady. So
They
I want
got
to ask
Tom
you
Brady.
overall, what is? Hey, they got AARP Tom Brady, man. You know what I'm saying? He got something to prove this year. But I want to ask you, what? Give me your thoughts on the Buccaneers period, and like from a fantasy perspective, which player out of all those you think is going to digress? Just because it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? It's too many mouths to feed. So which offensive weapon you think is going to like scale it back this season?
Honestly, I believe, one, that the Buccaneers is the greatest offensive team constructed in their history. That's number one. Number two, I really believe that that Mike Evans is going to digress this year. A lot of what people didn't know was
Wow.
that a lot of what people didn't know was that a lot of Jameis's 30 interceptions was due to guys not knowing what to do, straight up. So Jameis is throwing routes that he's knowing that the receiver is not knowing, which is putting the Jameis in a bad position because he looks like he's just throwing it to the other team.
Yeah. Hey, listen.
So you get a situation like that, and you're taking it to the umpteenth most level, dealing with a brainiac in Tom Brady, who's all about, knowing, doing your job, coming from the New England Patriots. I think he's going to struggle in his first year trying to figure out that you have to be right all the time when you're dealing with Tom Brady. Tom Brady's not a throw the ball down the field type of guy. The last time we saw that was in 2007. And with the pieces that they've added, and having O.J. Howard and Gronk and Chris Godwin being who they are, and then you got the fast running backs in the backfield that are similar to a James White that he had in New England, I don't believe that anything is going to change too much about Tom Brady and the style of offense where he's nickel and diming you to death. Mike Evans is going to be that guy that they're throwing it to keep threat down the field, but he's not going to have the same amount of numbers of what Jameis force feeding them either.
Right. Now, I'm interested to see. Now, the guy I'm interested to see this year is Chris Godwin. Because, listen, Chris Godwin, he balled out last season. He was a Pro Bowler, finished within the top half of receiving yards season. I believe he was a top 15 wide receiver in fantasy last season. So, the fact of the matter is that I feel like there's just so, when there's just too many hands in one cookie jar, you know what I'm saying? And then, like, that last guy got to get the crumbs, you know what I'm saying? I think that's going to be Chris Godwin. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he's going to I think he's going to have some great games this year. But do I think he's going to have 1,200 receiving yards and 11 touchdowns? No. Maybe.
How much is Leonard Fournette touching the rock?
Right. And also, too, that's a big thing, too, because Leonard Fournette is obviously their starter. And then plus you have that running back by – I think what the Bucs are going to do, I think the Bucs are going to go running back by committee, per se, because you still have Ronald Jones, who played pretty well towards the end of the year. So you have to show him love. He has to get touches. He has to get touches. So I just think that I feel like that's the running back situation that I would stay far away from. Just because the level of uncertainty in terms of, you have Fournette there. He just signed there, so you don't know how he's going to adjust to the offense. And then plus you have Rojo there too, which is the jury's still out on him as a player. You know what I'm saying? Because he really started to get hot towards the end of the season after, he was injured a couple times, his first couple years in the league. So it's still interesting to see like that running back situation in Tampa Bay. But the tight end situation is just it's not a mess. It's just too many mouths to feed. Like you have Cameron Brate. Cameron Brate, I think like I said again, I feel like he's one of the more underappreciated players.
Yeah.
Right. He's very, very underappreciated for what he does, especially what he does in the money zone, which I call the red zone. That gets you that bread. You know what I'm saying? That gets you those points of fantasy. So the fact that he's going to lose some touches just because you got O.J. Howard there, who's, the jury's still out on him because, his contract year is there. And then you got Gronk is obviously going to play. He's obviously going to start. So I just feel like Cameron Brate and Chris Godwin may get lost in the shuffle, so the numbers may digress a little bit. But who knows? Who knows what the Bucs do this season? Now I want to talk about
got the best chance out of the division to come out on top, but reaching the Super Bowl is a whole nother feat that in a shortened season now, I think it's going to affect Tom Brady a lot more than people are giving credit to, due to the fact that it's a shortened season where you're not able to physically be with your guys as much as you would in a regular offseason.
Right, right, right. I mean, but does that really even like? Does that really play a part, especially for a quarterback, especially for an older quarterback like yourself? Because oh, not for yourself, like an older quarterback in general. Because which is interesting. You know, I was reading an article. I'm not going to say where I was reading the article from, but I was reading an article, and it was interesting because it was talking about how like the younger quarterbacks can actually step up and like walk into a system and just actually play, where like like get repertoire in practice. Whereas if the older quarterbacks have to, what I'm saying, like work with the guys throughout the offseason just to get the timing right. So I feel like the older you get as a quarterback, I feel like your timing has to be better. Whereas the younger you are, what I'm saying, you can just make plays out of your ass. You know what I'm saying? You can just thread the needle in certain situations and stuff like that. So I'm interested to see the chemistry and the repertoire of Tom Brady and those receivers in general.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. I think Tom Brady being who he is you can call him the GOAT, so that's going to rub off on a lot of what he was able to do so far. So that's what the only saving grace I can see to it. But if we're just talking pure numbers, he wasn't great in the numbers last year anyway. So I think the wins is different than the actual numbers, especially for fantasy, that some people are anticipating, that I think you should be a little cautious of, considering they'll get W's, but it ain't going to be the way that people think. There ain't going to be no Jameis 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. It's going to be wins, but it might be how they was winning in New England, where they were a lot of close games.
Okay. All right. I want to talk about another NFL football team, America's football team. Are they really America's football team? Because the last time they won a Super Bowl, America Online was not a thing yet. And so I don't know, but the Dallas Cowboys, obviously, we have Dak Prescott. He finishes the top 5 fantasy quarterback last season. They just drafted possibly one of the best receivers in the draft last year, CeeDee Lamb, and you got a talented receiving core with Amari Cooper, and you have Gallup, who made big steps last season, I believe, towards the end of the year to prove that he's legitimate second receiver for the Dallas Cowboys. And you got Zeke and Tony Pollard in that backfield. And then you got, an unknown guy, but, he showed signs of good things in tight end Blake Jarwin. So I want to talk about the Cowboys from an offensive perspective. Which guy out of the Cowboys from a team perspective you think is going to pop in fantasy the most?
I really believe this is Zeke's year. You got Mike McCarthy, the king of wanting to run the football, and Kellen Moore having the season he did with Dak, which was great, but it proved that it couldn't get him to the playoffs. So this time, I believe that Mike McCarthy's influence is going to have on the play caller with Kellen Moore to influence Zeke more in order to make that push for the playoffs. Because once they get to the playoffs, I believe Zeke is going to be the reason why they make it anywhere past that. So Zeke's importance is now more than ever. They just paid him $50 million. He didn't have the season that they wanted him to have, so I think he has a lot more motivation. But it all starts with Zeke. Dak is also playing on a franchise tag with a lot more weapons, but they can't rely on that if they really want to make a chance for the playoffs solely. So, yeah, Dak's going to have a great year, not the year he had last year, because they're going to focus more on Zeke and having Zeke starting to be the reason why, and that's going to help them propel for more wins to get to the playoffs. But fantasy-wise, Zeke's the guy. Zeke's the guy on that team.
I honestly think Dak Prescott's going to be the guy this year. I think Dak Prescott, he's possibly going to finish top 3 in fantasy quarterbacks this year, I think.
What?
I mean, I think he's in it. Yeah, I mean, listen, as a Giants fan, you know what I'm saying? Like, I hate the Cowboys, but, like, it's a tough pill to swallow, you feel me? But I think Dak Prescott is really going to ball the fuck out this year. Because, I think the addition of CeeDee Lamb, you know what I'm saying? We know what he can do stretching the field. But it's just that – so I think that Dak's going to take more shots down the field this season than he did in previous years. So we will get more interceptions from Dak Prescott, but I feel like the yards output and the touchdown passes will increase. So that's obviously a direct correlation. The more you throw, the more interceptions you're gonna the more interceptions you're gonna more likely throw. You know what I'm saying? Unless if you're Pat Mahomes and you're just a fucking wizard.
It
But
doesn't matter.
I just right. So, but I think with Dak, I feel like he's gonna throw more interceptions, but his yards are gonna go up this season, and his touchdown passes are gonna go up this season. And then we already know what Zeke can do, but the player that I'm really worried about on that team is Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper played very well last season, but I just think, like I said, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers now you got more hands in the cookie jar. You know what I'm saying? And CeeDee Lamb has to get his touches, and Blake Jarwin, he's my surprise player. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. I'll get more in depth on Blake Jarwin at the end of the show. But in terms of guys just like getting their targets and too much hands in the cookie jar, I think Amari may take a little step back, but I think he's gonna play well throughout the year. But I in terms of touchdowns and yards, I think he'll scale back in those a little bit in those categories this season.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think Amari showed that he's good at home, but he's found ways to disappear on the road. And now that's not going to help the case when you're adding a player like CeeDee Lamb into the mix where he's a top first-round guy and they want to feature him. However, the Cowboys did pay Amari a lot of money. So I think the share is gonna be interesting how they go about it, because Michael Gallup is no slouch himself. With the mix in with the running backs and Tony Pollard, you got a lot of talent on the Cowboys roster. Is going down to how Dak will be able to distribute the football. And we've seen that he can put up a lot of big numbers, but it's a lot of nothingless burgers because they don't translate to where they want to be. So they're probably going to try to play a little smarter with Mike McCarthy being experienced as he is, having Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre and finding ways to get to the chip with those guys. And it starts with the run. So I find it hard that Mike McCarthy is going to avoid having Zeke in the backfield and throwing the ball 100 times to just Amari. So I agree. He's going to take a step back in that aspect. And then it's going to be interesting to see. Now we're paying you $80 million for your contract. So what are you producing on the road? Can you help us in those big moments of this one-on-one coverage? Because they're going to give attention to CeeDee Lamb at some point throughout the season.
Right. So now I want to talk about. I'm interested. This is another interesting team that's in the league right now, fantasy wise, and just in football in general. The Arizona Cardinals, man. You know what I'm saying? You have Kyler Murray. He had although in wins, it didn't show in wins. Kyler Murray showed big promise. You have something. The Cardinals have a quarterback for the future, no debate. And then they just signed. Possibly I think the best wide receiver in the game in DeAndre Hopkins. And they have a running back who finished hot to end the season in Kenyon Drake, will be gone by round 3. For a fact. So I want to talk about the Cardinals offense. I want to talk about the Cardinals offense and where do you see them going in general?
The Cardinals offense can definitely compete with the 49ers within the division. They did it last year with a worse record. I think this year is a little more of an even playing field. You got a game changer in DeAndre Hopkins in a passing offense that's going to feature him and Larry, you already know from the beginning, along with Christian Kirk, who's that nice piece that's a connection between a guy like DeAndre and a guy like Larry Fitz, where he's that centerpiece to where they can be able to distribute the ball and be a real problem with the offensive style of offense that they have. Kyler Murray is going to have that Lamar, Pat Mahomes sophomore season where the Cardinals are going to be a hot team in the NFL and may even have a chance for Kyler to be in the MVP races, at least winning some type of award by the end of the season. So I'm projecting that. And then, like you said, Kenyon Drake, who was hot with Miami, but got in a better position being that he fits solely what the Cardinals are really probably trying to do with their offense, considering he's like a receiver itself, he's a David Johnson healthy, in my opinion. So maybe they can't do the same things between the tackles, but I know that David Johnson and Kenyon Drake are no different outside of the tackles with the ball in their hands. So they have every piece to make Kyler successful. And on top of that, Kyler, as athletic as they come, he's a shorter package Lamar. So his ability to be playmaking with the experience of Larry Fitz and DeAndre, I mean, it's hard to miss on that offense.
Yeah. That's you said it perfectly. I'm interested to see what Kenyon Drake does. He had 8 touchdowns to end the season, which is crazy. Talk about saving your season. That's
Yeah.
he saved the season. So I mean, I want to see. I'm interested to see what Kenyon Drake does in a full workload by himself. I mean, you have Chase Edmonds, who honestly, the Cardinals running back tandem of Edmonds and Drake, that's also a potential handcuff that you may want to consider if you take Kenyon Drake in your drafts. So that's a play. Chase Edmonds is a player that you may have to consider taking in the later rounds because Chase Edmonds, we know what he can do in the passing game, and also too the games that they didn't have any running backs when David Johnson was hurt. You know, he played well. Chase Edmonds played well. So it's interesting to see how they utilize Chase Edmonds this year compared to last season because he has to get touches. So we're gonna see. I want to see how he does, but I'm interested to see. I'm interested to see the most. I'm interested to see what Christian Kirk does. You know what I'm saying? Christian
Christian.
Kirk. You know what I'm saying? Christian Kirk was Kyler Murray's guy last season. So I feel as if you have Larry Fitzgerald in the slot. You know what I'm saying? Larry Fitzgerald to me is one of the more underappreciated players overall, just in terms of what he's been able to do his later years at the slot receiver position. So I'm interested to see how Christian Kirk benefits off of the double teams that D Hop is going to face, and then you have to kind of circle in on Larry Fitzgerald when you're in third down, those 3rd and 8, those 3rd and 5 plays where you got to find a teeth or a hole in the zone, and Larry Fitzgerald is going to be that safety valve for you. So I'm interested to see how Christian Kirk will benefit from that, or will it hurt him? So that's something that I want to see. I'm interested to see him. I'm interested to see Christian Kirk in general. But now this is we're getting towards the end of the show. So this I call this the 2-minute drill. You feel me? So I'm gonna ask you some questions. You know what I'm saying? Just give me some 1-word answers. I'm gonna just fire them off to you. All right.
Fire them off.
All right. So I got 5 of these things for you. Which rookie receiver you think is gonna have a breakout year?
Jerry Jeudy, because I think he's in the perfect position. Drew Lock, make him famous. That's all I got for that.
You think they'll be singing Young Jeezy on the sidelines together?
Yeah, they throw a touchdown. Throw it to 10, you can win. Let's put it like that.
Okay. Now I want to ask you this: which defense you think is going to surprise people this year in fantasy?
I really think it's Arizona. They just paid Budda Baker, and they got a legend. I'm calling it right now. Isaiah Simmons is a future Hall of Famer. They got 2 of them boys running back there. It's a team to watch. As long as you got Chandler Jones, that may break the sack record this year. You got some dogs on that side of the
future.
Ball.
Before we talk about Chandler Jones, I want to say future Hall of Famer, future first ballot DN Chandler Jones. You know what I'm saying? I just want to get that out the way.
And Pat Pete. And you got Pat Pete.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Now I want to talk about which tight end you think is going to break out this season?
Tight end. I think it's OJ Howard's year just because of Tom Brady, man. I really think OJ Howard wasn't traded because he wanted to have Tom Brady and to be effective, and this is his year to shine. All the cameras were going to be on him because Tom Brady's down there, so he got no chance other than to blow up.
All right, it's a wild card for me. I'm going to take my guy Blake Jarwin. I'll talk about that later on.
People been talking about Blake Jarwin. Jarwin.
But this is the first year Blake Jarwin is, he's going to be the starter this year. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. He had to sit behind a guy who was, who could have, qualified for an AARP membership. Put it to you this way. We could have hung out with Jason Witten last year and gotten, 20% off our meal at IHOP. You feel me? So I'm interested to see what Blake Jarwin does this year. Now I want to ask you about Ryan Tannehill. This is the last question. Give me Ryan Tannehill stats for next season.
He'll throw under 3,000 yards. I'm saying he'll have around 25 touchdowns and 13 picks. Put it like that.
But what's the rushing yards and the rushing touchdowns going to be for Ryan Tannehill? Because we know he could run that thing too.
I believe Ryan Tannehill. He's been banged up a lot in the legs. I think he'll get around 400 yards rushing, just because everybody's going to
Ooh.
fall on Derrick Henry so tough that Tannehill, if he don't have it, he's going to take off and he's going to get his yards because he's big, he's huge.
So you think he's going to finish in the top 5 for rushing quarterback for rushing yards by a quarterback this season? That's your stamp, that guaranteed.
They have that guarantee because who are their receivers that they've been balling out with? This is a Derrick Henry team.
No, I like AJ Brown though. You know what I'm saying? I think
AJ
AJ
Brown's
Brown
good,
AJ Brown is spectacular. I think he may take a sophomore slump this year just because defense is going to key on him more. You know what I'm saying? He was a surprise last year, especially towards the end of the season. So I think he may scale back a little bit. Fantasy wise, you know what I'm saying? If he's there in probably within like the third round, you know what I'm saying, middle of third round, you should take him, you know what I'm saying, just off of value. Or even if you get him in the fourth round, you know what I'm saying? If he's like your first pick in the fourth round, God forbid, you know what I'm saying? That's a guy you take, you know what I'm saying, just off of value alone. But we got to wrap this show up, you know what I'm saying? So I just want to say this: like and subscribe, you feel me, to the show, to the Air It Out show with Malik and Rios, you know what I'm saying? Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, you feel me? We're going to have some guests coming, of course. You feel me? It ain't just going to be a two-man show. You feel me? We're going to add more people to the party, of course. So, Malik, you got any last thoughts?
It's going to be a crazy season. You tune into the first episode live, man. I mean, this is only going to get better, and it gets greater later.
Yes.
Tune in, follow us, Air It Out. And we got more topics on the way for you guys.
Yes, sir. We signing off. Peace.
Got it, bro.